about 24 hours ago, a little bit less. Then 24 hours ago, Brian Kelly was fired at LSU. Frank Wilson is going to be the interim head coach there. He's going to be meeting with the media shortly. The players were supposed to be given off Monday and Tuesday. They have not been given off. They are still in the building. I do think things are moving very quickly here. But now that we've had 24 hours to digest this, there are a couple of things that I would just come out here and say. I do think LSU is going to move quickly. Here's the truth. This will come out in the coming days, so I want people to understand that. LSU and Louisiana has multiple billionaires in the state, a lot of oil people. Brian Kelly's buyout is going to be taken care of. If it gets to that point, I don't think LSU is really strapped for cash at the current moment. Maybe like some thought that they would be. That gives me a lot of faith about where this thing is going here. And I think a lot of favors have been asked and been granted. And I think LSU is a little bit better set up coming out of this 24 hours after the fact of firing Brian Kelly. So I think that there are some structural things that are going on here that makes a lot more sense.
So if I'm correctly reading into that, you're basically saying the assumption that they do not have the money to go and spend to go get a big name.
It's false.
That is a false assumption, which I did see that report today that it fits what you just said, where the money is coming from a private donor, which usually means some rich, pissed off dude decided to take care of it himself. So it makes sense.
Majority of it being, Joe, from what I understand, north of like 25 million of this is coming from one person.
Wow.
So I don't, and by the way, if LSU does have to pay him out, that they can stretch that $25 million a long way into this, multiple years into this, for basically kind of, limiting themselves on what they have to do here.
Whatever makes it easy for them, because they're going to need the money. They're going to need to be able to throw around a lot of cash if they want to entice one of these big names. And I know you and I just kept doing a bit of a stupid bit this morning where I kept kind of just throwing it in. Like, what about this guy? What about that guy? I know that you're in a lot more in the know than I am.
I got sent your tweet about Kelvin Shepherd, and I love Kelvin Shepherd at least 10 times today. And that is not going to happen. But
I think that he would be so fair. I really think he'd be so perfect. But I agree with you that if we were just in a vacuum talking about who would be perfect to represent LSU, it's Kelvin Shepherd, a guy who has already turned the Lions defense into an elite defense, or carried the success since Aaron Glenn left. He has been considered a guy who is a riser. There's all these clips of him when he was on Hard Knocks as a coach, just giving these like really passionate conversations, having these passionate conversations with his players. I think he fits, and him being a all SEC linebacker from LSU works. But the problem is, and what you and I texted about, he does not have any college coaching experience. He doesn't know how to recruit. And he's also just overall, he's a relatively inexperienced coach. He's
very green. He's very green in this.
Yeah. Kelvin Shepherd feels like he would make sense if the job was open in 5 years. I think that right now the timing just might not work.
Well, and another thing too, look, those guys, like everybody wants to bring up Joe Brady. I think the only team that in this coaching carousel, and Joe, you more than most know that when I speak about this individual person, I don't know if there's anybody in media that does this from a national perspective, has the connection on this one. And I will say this as it is. If there's one college head coaching search for like a coordinator in the NFL that makes sense, it would be Joe Brady to Penn State. I think that he would listen. I think that he would be very entertained in that one because he's from there. It's not happening, at least not right now. So when you're talking about, go ahead.
Well, I was going to add here, and I pitched it to you yesterday, kind of forgetting this. The Bengals job is probably going to come open. I would think that Joe Burrow would
all right, well, you stole my
Okay.
take. Thank you.
Sorry.
I do think that Joe Brady and Joe Burrow have had conversations. I think if I'm a betting man, those conversations would be ongoing. They will never admit it. That job is going to come open, and Joe Brady is gone. And if Joe Burrow gets his way, Joe Brady will be his next head coach. And by the way, He's not the only one who's been paid by the Bengals with a lot of money with LSU ties to Joe Brady. That in and of itself, let's cut that.
Yeah.
Here's the truth. If you're in Oxford, Mississippi today, you're terrified. You're terrified. I think they're going for broke. There are some coaching candidates that I think that make sense here. One that I got to see happen to believe that it's going to happen is John Summerall at Tulane. This is from things I hear, this is getting too political. Joe, I don't see a sitting governor who's going to hire a president and things getting very political in this one. I don't know that he's going to pull an in-state schools coach and then bring him to the biggest university inside of the state. It makes no sense to me. I would love John Summerall. If you ask me, let's go get him. Okay? I don't think that happens.
Yeah.
I think they have three head coaches that they're going after. And listen, this is going to get clipped, and people are going to say it will never happen. Do you call Nick Saban and ask him what's up?
Well, this was something I texted you about earlier. I don't think the conversation is implausible. Like, legitimately, some people will listen to this and think, like, oh my God, these two jackasses just said Nick Saban. It's actually probably the only job that it would make sense. He wouldn't take the Florida job. Nick Saban literally said one of his biggest regrets was leaving LSU. I don't know if he feels like he has some sort of obligation to finish something with LSU. I don't think he does it. I seriously doubt that he would consider doing it. But to your point, it's the only opening where we can make that claim and then quickly move on from it after we talk it through. Every other one is ridiculous. Florida doesn't make any sense. Penn State absolutely doesn't make sense. Even if like a job like Ohio State opened up, I don't think that would make sense for him either.
The LSU side. Well, I mean, let's take his words. Okay, what are his words? Nick Saban was at the Louisiana Hall of Fame where he was inducted.
Yep.
He literally said that his biggest regret in coaching was leaving LSU. I don't know if he ever wants to leave game day. He's getting paid a ridiculous amount of money. LSU would have to pay him a ridiculous amount of money for him to come here and do that. But I do ask the question, do you say, hey, who is somebody that you think that would be great here? Regardless, I think that you get him involved and you ask him a couple of questions in reference to what do you think we would do and would you be involved in this? I do think Eli Drinkwitz's name is going to come up in both of these searches, meaning Florida and LSU, and we'll go from there. I got to say this something, Joe. You and I were texting throughout the day yesterday. Just to give a little background to this, I didn't want to do it last night, but I'll do it here. Around 9:30 yesterday, I texted you and said, brother, this is getting bad. This is getting very bad for Brian Kelly. I thought that The Athletic got majority of it right from what I heard, but that story is true. And here's the truth that I think people need to be careful about when it comes to LSU. When you piss the fan base off and you piss off the boosters, they will do what they think they got to do to be relevant. So I don't really think that right now that there's any real coaching like, hey, this is who they're going after. I do think Lane Kiffin will be, I don't want to say atop the board, but he's going to be high up on that board for sure.
I just want to toss this out there because I tweeted about it and I had a lot of Notre Dame fans like and interact with the tweet. I think for both sides, Marcus Freeman, because his name's going to get brought up, and I'm sure that they're going to have the conversation with themselves, those that are involved with the search. Marcus Freeman doesn't make sense to me. From the Marcus Freeman side, it was reported today by The Athletic that he turned down Florida and Penn State interest. He didn't turn down a job, but he quickly shut down interest from those two places. I don't think that LSU suddenly changes his mind. I know that LSU is a better job, as we've talked about, but I think if you're going to turn down those two jobs, it tells me that you're committed and you're locked in where you are. The other side of this, I would find it really hard to believe that the administration could sell to the LSU fans they're hiring a guy who's associated with the guy that you just got rid of, who literally came from the same school that you just got rid of. I feel like, knowing LSU fans and how I've slowly gotten to get to know them, that is not something that they can be sold on. Am I wrong about that?
they could be sold on him and say that look what he's did to Notre Dame that Brian Kelly couldn't. They would use
but isn't that the same shit that they did with Brian Kelly? That's the problem.
I mean, I think it would be kind of wild for LSU back-to-back to pull a Notre Dame head coach. It would be. Yeah. Don't laugh. It would be funny. It would be so.
Well, I don't disagree with you. It'd be funny. And I tweeted about this. Notre Dame, I just know how they operate. And if that theoretically happened, which again, I don't think it happens.
I don't think it happens.
Tommy Rees would be in the coaching search for Notre Dame, and I would have a stroke. I'm just telling you that right now, which is why I hope it doesn't happen.
Well, here's the truth. I mean, Urban Meyer said there was only one job that he would ever come out of retirement for, and it's yours.
The Notre Dame job?
Yeah, he said it.
That was talked about previously. I think that he's just saying shit. I don't know if I trust him.
At least, yeah. I mean, I don't know if I trust him either. But that is what he said in his words. We'll see. We'll continue to monitor. I don't think anything happened. I mean, they did fire Joe Sloan. It's a little
happened a while ago.
Should have happened. It should have happened at the end of last year. So, last thing I would say here, I do think Frank Wilson, for everything that it's worth, I do think that Frank Wilson makes this an open competition, and may the best quarterback win. That's all I'm going to say. So, Alabama, you're going to have to prep for 2 quarterbacks here. So, we'll see what happens. All right, let's move forward here.